Hey everyone, Cell here. Finally decided to dip my toes into the broken build slash archetype of the league. Always happens when there's new stuff coming out, especially on the level of this current patch. They introduced a lot of new things. Everyone knows that Minion Pact is currently incredibly overpowered, especially with Blade Vortex, but also just in general. So I avoided it for a little bit. I have a Diamond Shrine belt, and so I wasn't really too keen on playing something with low mobility. A lot of the chieftains that are out there using Mage Bloods. They didn't really want to be putzing around with like 20% movement speed. So I ended up putting something together on an Assassin that I've ended up liking quite a bit. You can see some of the footage in the background. It's a little bit laggy. Still tweaking with my footage recording setup for actual in-game stuff. But yeah, you can get a little showcase of the damage here. Currently using a double explosion setup, which I'll get into momentarily as well, but very happy with the character and liking it a lot, so let's check it out in game. I'm currently sitting at level 94. I got to level 91 from scratch in about 6 hours, if I recall, which is the fastest I think I've ever hit the 90s on any character. And yeah, just generally enjoying the setup, as I said before. Still not even close to the maximum potential on pretty much any metric for this character. So if you're not familiar, currently the busted thing of the league is Minion Pact. Deals damage, or adds physical damage equal to 2.8% of sacrifice minion's life. This starts at 2% at level 1 and gains 0.4% every level. I'm assuming it falls off after level 4, but I don't know for sure. I missed my corruption anyhow, so I'm stuck with level 3. Not a huge deal. It would be like quite a bit more damage to have a level 4, but again, damage is kind of, it becomes irrelevant at a certain point. And I'm going to contradict myself later by talking about how it's important to get more damage, but for now we'll stick with that. And yeah, gives you so much damage, it kind of doesn't matter what else you do, like running life tap as a main support just to fix my lack of mana here. Some people are using more duration as a support just because there's no reason not to. So the idea behind Blade Vortex, again, if you're not familiar, you probably are because this build is everywhere at the moment. But you sacrifice a minion when you cast Blade Vortex using Minion Pact, and it'll add that damage to Blade Vortex as long as the stacks haven't fallen off from that initial cast. So my duration is 6.44 seconds here. I have to cast Blade Vortex every 6.44 seconds or I lose my damage bonus. It's like, you know, almost all of my damage goes away. Then I have to leave my map and come back to respawn my Spectre because they automatically respawn after they die. You just have to change zones. Then I go back into the map and summon it again. Or it's alive again, and then I can use Blade Vortex to get the Minion Pack damage again. So I mentioned that the reason I wanted to go for this character was because I didn't want to be walking around super slowly or anything like that. Even with shield charge, like you tend to want to scale some amount of attack speed and a little bit of cast speed at least, just to help smooth things out a little bit. And especially just because there's kind of 3 pillars of PoE character building, which are damage, defense, and speed. Either, you know, clear speed, movement speed, hit rate of things. Those all impact those other metrics, of course. Everything's kind of intertwined. But I specifically wanted a character that was capable of moving around quickly. So my baseline 62% movement speed is pretty decent, especially considering I don't have Wither up. So this is going to have a little bit of extra effect from Withering Step. But if I hit that, I go up to 130-ish, 140-ish, with my elusive effect. Again, that has a little bit of extra effect from Withering Step as a gem, but I'm getting most of my effect from the baseline 100%, of course, 10% from the small assassin node, 100% from Mistwalker, and there's a new rune graft this league, if I can remember which one it is. Rune graft of the Agile. Elusive's effect on you is increased instead for the first 2 seconds. So instead of decaying for the first 2 seconds, it goes up. So functionally, it's like adding more to your average uptime, or average elusive value, I should say, and uptime, I guess, as well. But on average, I'm going to be sitting at like 100% movement speed. And I don't have currently any source of onslaught or anything like that. I am running haste as an aura. There are ways to fit in onslaught, and I'm thinking I might be able to fit in Annihilation's Approach in my boot slot, if I can get enough regeneration for it, which I do have a plan for. And that'll be another 25% attack, cast, movement speed, physical damage reduction, and extra damage. Extra damage is always nice, even though it's like hugely overkill on this kind of setup. And I'll showcase that a little more when I get into Path of Building. But this chaos damage builds, poison builds specifically, I suppose, are generally starved for damage increases. So anywhere you can get generic or chaos, or in this case physical damage increases, you tend to be pretty starved for those, so they tend to go a long way. That's why these nodes, for physical and chaos damage for physical-based poison builds, are some of the best nodes in the game. Like, the Assassin starting node is one of the best nodes that you're going to have on such a build. Now, I say that, but I've opted to take the attack and cast speed on the bottom path here, just because, again, the damage isn't that big of a deal. Each of these is 20%, so I'm essentially trading 60% damage for 12% attack and cast speed, which so far I've decided is fine. Maybe when I get Annihilation's Approach, I'll switch over to this top path here, since I'll have some more attack and cast speed. And I do actually have quite a bit already on my shield charge, because I am using a momentum support as well for an extra 20%, which I don't think gets reflected here, actually. Oh, it does. Okay. That's interesting. I wouldn't have expected that. Yeah, so 139% attack speed modifier on shield charge feels pretty good. So like, even without elusive up, my mobility is pretty solid, and it just gets even better when elusive is up. Again, on average, it's essentially a Quicksilver, and it's up as long as I'm hitting something. I have Withering Step, you'll notice, on automation, but this essentially doesn't do anything whatsoever, except take up a gem slot at the moment, because you can't gain elusive while you're elusive. So if I'm hitting stuff, I'm elusive because I'm critting, and if I am not elusive, Withering Step will trigger, but then I'll immediately shield charge and get rid of it, because using a skill ends the elusive from Withering Step. So, yep, kind of an idea that didn't pan out. Not really an idea, I guess, more like it's a chaos build, put Withering Step in just because. But it doesn't really work out because we have elusive happening elsewhere. Kind of glossing over some of the other items I've got going on, obviously, as well. I have a diamond replenishing belt, which is part of why I went Assassin. I'm using Perfect Agony alongside the belt, plus a ton of crit multi from Maralene's Fallacy. Just, yeah, that equals massive damage over time multiplier for ailments from critical strikes. And yeah, that's part of the reason I went Assassin as well. I knew I wanted to use a crit build as a Diamond Shrine belt owner. Obviously trying to fit this thing on everything because it's kind of the item of the league for me. And also had a Calandra's Touch drop while I was breach farming on another character. Currently reflecting this ring, which is okay. Like it's fixing my res at the moment and giving me some rarity, but I think ultimately I may end up crafting a minion life and chaos damage jewel, or ring, sorry, or maybe a minion life and resistance ring, something like that. Doesn't really matter. Depends on what I do with my gearing. I'm thinking of dropping lightning coil for doppelganger guys, which is part of what I'm hoping will enable me to run Annihilation's Approach. This one's corrupted below its usual physical damage effect. I just have been throwing my volatile Volorbs at my lightning coils whenever I have one of each. And this is unfortunately the best one I've gotten so far. Yeah, so I could have a little bit higher fizz mitigation, I suppose, but yeah, and I'm obviously using Unseen Hand for an extra ring slot because I'm using the Shrine Belt, and that's functionally disabling my flasks anyways, so I might as well. But again, this is doing nothing for me. Already have Life Leech from my imbuement on Blade Vortex. This ring is 10% movement speed. That's essentially all I care about at the moment, but eventually I will get around to crafting rings and whatnot. I really wanted to put this video together to show that this is the start of the character. Almost everything about it could be improved. The only locked in slots, I would say, are my belt, my amulet, of course, Calandra's Touch, probably. I'm going to attempt to craft a ring that it's useful to have two of, so I can actually use it, because this is the first time I've ever had a Calandra's Touch. And my shield is probably locked in as well. I actually got this one from shipping, believe it or not. It dropped with, or it came back in the shipment, I suppose, with Tier 1 Life, Tier 1 Chaos and Fire Res, and Tier 1 Block Chance. And then I crafted a suffix, and Crusader exalted the damage mod, which is guaranteed. It's the only Crusader prefix for shields, so you can always get that on a shield. So it's giving me 65% increased damage. So yeah, 4 Tier 1 shield came back from shipments. All perfectly rolled as well. Like, almost every stat was perfect across the board except the baseline armor, which is fine. I did go for a block setup. So with my average elusive effect, I have about 20% chance to avoid damage from hits. Also have 65 attack and spell block using Versatile Combatant. I think it is feasible to drop this and go full 75-75 block, or potentially even use a Svalin at some point. If I get a Svalin, I'll probably try to fit it in somehow, but if I don't, then no big deal. 75 or 65 is fine for me. Also picked up Iron Reflexes just because I haven't put together a cluster setup or really thought about it much beyond a few minor things. So I'm kind of just putting points wherever for the time being. But Iron Reflexes, obviously in conjunction with damage shifting over into Lightning, is pretty good. I'll spec out of this if I use Doppelganger guys, because one, I'll have less armor and evasion from the Desert Brigandine itself, and two, the way lessening your damage taken, physical damage from Doppelganger guys works, that happens essentially after armor has already been factored in. So yeah, Iron Reflexes will be even worse than it already is. Kind of already isn't that good. Weapon setup. Currently using Obliteration and Asenath's Gentle Touch to kind of fix the clear speed issues that are inherent to Blade Vortex. It's not a fast clearing skill by any means, so you have to fix that somehow. Obviously, the Chieftain players have explosions and ignite proliferation and all that jazz. I didn't expect this to be as good as it is, the explosion or the obliteration Asenath's combo, but it's been great so far. And um, I am going to give it up though. My current plan is that I have an Omen of Fortune that I got like day 2 of the league. It's been sitting in my stash since then. That I'm going to make an Elder Hunter Beano's kitchen knife. And that is another part of my plan to solve my regen for Annihilation's Approach, because that'll be 400 flat regen against my 4.5, 5,000 life in the end. And on top of that, the 3-meter wide radius of poison proliferation is hopefully going to be really good. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a gamble. I can make a lot of different things with my Omen of Fortune, of course, but that's what I'm sticking with. Just because, I don't know, I might as well use it than let it sit in my stash. I think I have one from a past league in Standard, or maybe multiple, that I never ended up using, so I might as well use it for a build I'm enjoying, I suppose. And yeah, there's just so much left that can be done with this character. Obviously, I have to make my Beanos, then I'll have to make a pair of gloves. My helmet, I'm going to attempt to fracture a +2 minion helmet. +2 levels to my Ray Spectre gem is about 20% more damage. I have 4 fracturing orbs here. I've used 4 so far, and none of them have hit the mods I wanted, and 3 of those were 50/50s, and one of them was a 1 in 4, so not great fracturing orb luck this league so far. Using Supreme Ostentation from a Caspiro Elegant Hubris like everybody else, because you want to get as much minion life as possible. When I picked up this node, it was like 50% more damage over what I had previously, so I was like, yeah, that's worth 3 points. I have another one I'm going to switch to, which has minion life here and here. I'm going to respec these points over into this, and then pick up this one with an anointment. That'll require me to drop Sovereignty, which I need currently to run Malevolence. But I figured that'll let me run Flesh and Stone at that point. Again, shift more damage into defenses, but also I'm not losing damage. Malevolence as an aura gives me less damage than a single 80% max life node. So, like, it's crazy. I've got a couple spots here left for minion life tattoos. One here and one over here. Those two together are about 6% more damage. Again, just for stuff I'm waiting on. I've got shipments sent out right now that I'm hoping come back with some of those. But otherwise, like, character doesn't lose anything by swapping those out. I counted like 20-something dexterity nodes that I'm going to tattoo at some point, depending on my gearing needs, for cold resistance or stun immunity, things like that. I mistakenly remembered that there were poison on hit tattoos. There are not. I don't know if that was a thing in Trials of the Ancestors, but maybe it was. So I'm going to have to get some Eater influenced, an Eater modifier on my glove, something like, I don't remember if it's Eater or Exarch, to cap out my poison chance, because I'm sitting at 85% poison chance. So yeah, like there's so much left to do, and I'll close out the video here before it's half an hour long, just showcasing the path of building, and remembering that this is just the beginning of this character, which is kind of ridiculous. So here we are on Path of Building. I'll link this down below, and I won't cover everything in too much depth since I just talked about it all, but using a perfect meat sack in here because the Unholy Aberration is not in Path of Building as far as I know. Yeah. So the perfect meat sack has a 7 times life multiplier. The aberration, which is the one you use, has 14 times. So to fix that, I'm using this 100% more minion life just to double that effective multiplier. Damageable minion life is 482k, as we can see here, which puts my Blade Vortex damage 10 blades at a little under 22 million. I don't have this node allocated in POB. It adds some crit multi against things that are not on low life. So for the first half of the fight, I'm dealing like 4.5 million more damage. Realistically not, so like I think 22 mil is a pretty fair estimate there. And of course there's some ramping involved because it's poison with Assassin, against single target at least. I have to poison 20 times within 4 seconds to get up to my full duration. And then of course there's a big delay because a lot of poison duration. Yeah, so this is kind of where we're at. Again, everything's very rough. Having a good time with it so far, just grinding out some of the items. I have done a bunch of 5-way invitations, have not gotten companionship support yet. But if I do eventually get that, we can check here. My minion life would go up to 819,000. So if I did that, I would go from 22 million to 36 million. Yeah, that's ridiculous. So whenever I get that, it's going to be completely bonkers. Reset this here, 482, and send this down below. If you've listened to this crazy ramble about the build, thank you for watching, and definitely suggest any kind of feedback you've got for future videos, and I'll be happy to listen to that and go from there. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you later. Peace.